I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX. Hey everybody. So here we have this HP desktop in for service, and it's in for a Windows 10 reinstall, but a bit more than just that. So this computer is kind of related to that compact tower that I did a video on last night. It's from the same person, and what they're wanting to have is a computer that they can use for capturing from composite or coax or what have you. Wanting to use it to capture, I think, VCR tapes and stuff like that. And this is also used as their personal system. So this is a HP model 251 I think 130 XT. I think it's a business class computer, and it's come to show just how horrible quality the modern day desktops really are, even from the commercial or business class channel. There for a while it seemed like it was primarily the consumer grade computers were garbage, but now it seems like it's also spreading over to the commercial grade machines as well. For example, look at this CD drive, or this DVD drive rather. It's a laptop DVD drive. Okay, there was plenty of room in this chassis to fit a full-size 5 1/4 inch DVD drive, but they chose not to. They chose to instead stick in a laptop optical drive instead. Now, these laptop drives, of course, they're slimmed down with intention of saving space at cost of reliability. Yeah, these things are not exactly all that reliable. But to be honest, if you've been watching my videos, I posted a video earlier this year talking about how the CD the CD and DVD as a form of media has become pretty much obsolete. A lot of desktops nowadays simply do not have a DVD drive in them. Also goes for laptops. They're not commonly used anymore, but there are certain instances where you do want to have one, and when it comes to these desktops, it seems like when you do want to have that option, they just give you a laptop drive. And this person, they want to have something that's going to be more reliable. I mean, for example, as mentioned, I did a video on this thing last night. This thing is an absolute tank. It weighs probably 30 pounds. That thing, however, it is super light. Super light. It's kind of pathetic. So you get this little skinny laptop DVD drive. You have a card reader, a headphone jack, 2 USB 2 ports. Now the motherboard on this thing does have a header for USB 3, but they chose not to utilize it. This is probably like it's more of a lower end setup. It has a Pentium processor in it, and not an i3, i5, or i7. It is better than having a Celeron, though. If you look at the back, you'll notice how, I mean, we do have a removable I/O shield plate. This does have a pretty standardized micro ATX motherboard in it and power supply, though the power supply is very anemic. Oh, just wait. Yeah. Notice how on this case we have a removable expansion slot cover here, in here, but not here and not here. There's a reason for that, and you'll see in a moment. So as mentioned, this thing it is so lightweight, feels like it could about just float away. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and open it up. And just to go ahead and preface this, yes, I have already been in this thing before. I've actually unplugged some cables inside of it to just have a look, because the plan is to transplant the motherboard, CPU and memory, and hard drive out of this thing into a better chassis that is not only built better, has a full-size 5¼ inch DVD drive, but also has on board these ports, including composite and audio up front. And I have a WinTV HVR 1250MC capture card I'm going to throw in that has the needed header for this to plug up to. So this is the case that has the Core 2 Quad Q6600 setup in it. I'm going to be pulling the hardware out of this thing, but you're pulling everything except for the DV drive. Everything else is coming out, including the power supply. I'm going to be replacing it with a power supply that's more fit for this system, probably a 250 watt or 300 watt. This power supply, unfortunately, is just not up to the task. And you're about to see why in a moment. Okay, let's go ahead and have a look inside this thing. Very anemic inside here. As mentioned, this case, there's plenty of room where they could have included a 5¼ inch drive up front, but they chose not to. Instead, they put this little skinny piece of crap laptop optical drive instead. You have one bay, or you can actually put up to 2 hard drives in this thing. Surprising, yeah, I know. And you can actually install an SSD if you wish. It does have provisions for that. Let's have a look at the motherboard. So as mentioned, I've already disconnected some stuff to have a look at the various connections and what have you. It does seem that this thing is pretty standardized. It ain't like that other system, that old compact. It ain't really proprietary in that sense. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this 4-pin power right here. It has 3-pin fan headers for your system fan. Surprising, yeah, I know. I was kind of expecting this thing to have 4-pin all throughout. So there's the header for the rear fan. There's our CPU core, pretty standard core. Does have a pretty monstrous fan on it though. We have 8 GB of DDR3 memory in this thing. Power supply cable is standard 24-pin. But yeah, just look at the look at the cables on this thing. Look at that 20-gauge goodness there. Typically you would want at least 18-gauge wiring there, but they chose to do 20-gauge here, which it's not a terrible thing. I mean, some power supplies do have this, especially cheap-end ones. The biggest issue you would have with this would be voltage drop, but anyways, thin cables are best suited for an anemic power supply like this 180-watt power supply here. Yes, 180-watt power supply. This thing is rated for just 180 watts. Here's all your information there. Pretty pathetic. And this is not even an active PFC power supply either. It's got a voltage selector switch on the back of it. And I think I'll be cracking this thing open in a later video to have a look inside of it. So yes, 180 watts at 50 degrees Celsius. The 12 volt outputs, it has 2 12 volt rails. One only puts out 7 amps. The other puts out 10 amps. So a combined 17 amps across both the 12 volt rails. So you have to consider most power supplies have gone back to using a single 12 volt rail. Matter of fact, a lot of modern power supplies, they supply practically just 12 volts and have a second board in them for DC to DC conversion, or have it on board. But yeah, this thing is just yeah, standard efficiency. No 80 plus here. Kind of pathetic in a newer system like this. So it's made by chickeny power. If I said that right. Now, I've seen wall warts and laptop adapters made by them, but I don't think I've ever really seen a desktop power supply from them. This will be interesting to crack open and have a look inside of, because this power supply will not be going over to the replacement case. Not only because of its anemic power output, but also because it only has 2 SATA power ports on one strand. So when you have an optical drive in there, you gotta have, a 5 1/4 inch optical drive, not this laptop piece of crap here. You gotta have extra SATA power ports for that. And having a hard drive way down here and having a DVD drive up here, that's simply not going to reach. So yeah, this computer, the power supply in it was spec just for the hardware that came in it. You could forget about putting a graphics card, even just a standard one that runs off the motherboard. That would be really pushing it for this power supply. You could put in a second hard drive. It does have a second power connector for that, but as mentioned, it's on the same strand, so there you have it. So this power supply, you get a 4-pin CPU power connector on 20 gauge wire. Oh yeah, this thing, everything's 20 gauge. 24-pin main connector. And you have 2 SATA hard drive connectors and this 5-volt power connector down here for this laptop optical drive. So theoretically, yes, I could reuse this power supply on another system, but it had to be one that has no optical drive. It has very basic components on the motherboard and what have you. So, power out of the way. The motherboard, as I may have mentioned, the connectors on it are pretty standardized. So this case, yeah, it's kind of pathetic. This is the audio here. The headers look a little weird, but so the audio is right there. It's a standard pinout. The USBs, although they have apparently, I'm guessing, 2 extra ground pins on the far right or far left, the way you're looking at it, on the far left. These 8 over here are the standard USB 2.0 pinout. You have your +5, your 2 datas, and your ground. So this motherboard should work fine in that other case. There are 3 USB ports available on this motherboard. USB 2 ports, I mean. And the case I'm looking at over here has 2 USB ports, as well as a card reader, which counts as a USB device. And it also has this pocket media drive bay, which is practically obsolete. I've hardly ever seen those get used, so I don't know anyone bother hooking that up. Besides, I couldn't anyway. No big deal there. This thing does have a Wi-Fi card on it, and the case actually has a Wi-Fi antenna. I don't think the user was using the Wi-Fi with this. I'd have to check for sure. I could actually transfer these Wi-Fi antenna leads over to the other case and mount them somewhere. I could figure out some way to mount them. But should be able to transfer this over just fine. So I'm not going to include video footage of me actually doing the transfer, because I gotta take all the stuff out of that one, and I gotta transfer all the stuff out of this one, and some other stuff in between. So what I'll do is I'll get video footage after I do the swap, because I got some other things I gotta do in the meantime. But yeah, this is a point of where I'm pretty much saying to anybody, if you want a decent desktop computer, practically the local computer shop is your best bet. Or if you want to learn how to build a system yourself, that would be an option for you as well. Because honestly, it seems like that's about the only way you're going to get something decent these days, is if you have it custom built by somebody. Because the retail hardware you find on like Newegg and sites like that is still pretty decent. You can still get 5 1/4 inch DVD drives. I mean, they're like $20. which, you know, I don't know what it would cost HP for one of these pieces of garbage, but I mean, it beats me. So in the end, the plan is to get this user a much better setup than what they have right now. Oh yeah, before I wrap it up, you remember I had mentioned about how these two expansion slot covers are the snap out type, and these are already removable ones? That's because the motherboard only offers you a full width PCI Express slot for a video card and a PCIe X1. You can see where there's two more slots on the motherboard where they could install slots, but they chose not to because they built this motherboard just to be practically just good enough for this computer. They only gave you 3 SATA ports because the idea is, okay, there's already a SATA DVD drive, and the case will only hold one additional hard drive. So yeah, there you have it. So this computer is from late 2015 or early 2016. It's supposedly it was retired out of a business of some sort, from what the owner had told me. It was given to them recently as a computer to use. So there you have it. So I'll be resuming this with video footage after I do all this work and get it done. Okay, everybody. So I've got this thing rebuilt into the gateway chassis, and let's have a look inside. So it's running right now, running just fine. Getting close to being finished with it. Okay, so there's the motherboard and the memory, processor, all that good stuff. Hard drives right there. So I swapped everything over except for the power supply. The power supply out of that system is right there. I'm going to do a video of it here shortly. So I swapped in a 250 watt FSP group unit, which was plenty adequate for this machine and offered all the needed connections and whatnot. And right there is the WinTV HVR 1250MC tuner card, and attached to it is the header for the front panel composite and audio ends. So you can practically hook this right to a VCR using RCA audio cables and a composite cable. As I think I mentioned earlier, the portable media drive bay is not actually hooked up. That's a pretty obsolete form of storage, and I seriously doubt the user would have any use for that. The card reader and USB ports, however, are hooked up. I even swapped the case fan over, since it was a 92mm fan, and this case had an 80 in it, so I just went ahead and swapped this 92 over. And I even have the Wi-Fi working on this. There's the Wi-Fi card up there in the corner, and I pulled the 2 antenna leads from this chassis, which we're going to have a look at that here in a moment, at this chassis. But the Wi-Fi leads went there and there, and I just attached them in this one up to where the DVD drive is bolted in. Seems to work perfectly fine. The Wi-Fi signal strength in this room is really good and strong, as it should be. So yeah, this this is definitely a much better outfit than what the user previously had. That case there is a piece of crap. It is freaking awful. HP practically designed this thing to where it was pretty much, you got what you got and you couldn't do much more with it. Now, I did go over this case earlier in the video, but I figured just take the opportunity to go over it again. I mean, you do get 2 hard drive bays, which the second one can be used for an SSD. You can only install a laptop style DVD drive in this thing. The power supply included is only 180 watts. Yeah, pretty terrible, but we're going to have a look at that power supply in a different video. As it's a brand I don't think I've ever really looked in. It's a brand I haven't really looked at too much, and it's a Chickeny, if you pronounce that right. I usually see laptop adapters and wall boards and stuff from them, but not desktop power supplies, so that'd be interesting to look at. But this case is made just the most awful. Just listen to it. They use as little metal as possible in this thing, and there's just so many spots in here where you could cut your fingers working in this thing. For example, the Mid-Tower Lux case was a $29 case on Dockside back in 2007. It's built better than this thing. And that's saying something. Come on, HP, this is terrible. So many areas on this chassis where you could easily cut your fingers wide open. It's terrible. I didn't cut myself on it when I was pulling all the stuff out of it, but it's just, like I say, it's just not that great. That thing, however, built much better, much more solid case. And the power supply I threw in has enough connectors for this thing. I don't anticipate the user ever needing a graphics card, but if the need ever rises for a 300 watt supply, I could toss one in if necessary. But there's the DVD drive. This is not the original DVD drive from this computer, because this one had an IDE DVD drive, so I swapped in one that offers SATA on the back rather than IDE. I think right there is the original one out of that system, the one on the bottom there. And this here is the laptop, the mobile DVD burner that was in this other computer. And I mean, they make them thin for really an intended purpose, to fit into the skinny laptops, but it's like they design these things for saving space at the cost of reliability. So I'm just dumbfounded why they would use these in desktops, especially in big towers where there's plenty enough room for a traditional 5 1/4 inch drive. But anyways, I think that wraps up for this video. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that's it for this video, but don't forget there's a lot more interesting stuff on the channel to check out. Also, if this is your first time visiting this channel, feel free to subscribe to keep your channel, and also don't forget to tick the bell so that way you'll get notified of new video posts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, but if you really didn't like it, there is the alternative option available as well. Also, feel free to check out my second channel, CubeComp MTDX. There you'll find videos about bicycling, weather, elevator tours, and all sorts of other neat, interesting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back, and thank you for your support.